It started like any other Friday evening. I told my husband I was going out with a few friends to unwind after a stressful week. He didn't think much of it. After all, he trusted me, and I made it sound perfectly ordinary. I smiled at him as he kissed me goodbye, not a hint of suspicion crossing his mind. The moment he walked out the door, I felt a strange thrill, a mix of excitement and nerves. Instead of meeting friends, I found myself walking through the entrance of a private, upscale venue tucked away in the heart of the city. The atmosphere was electric, buzzing with soft music, laughter, and the faint scent of expensive perfumes and cologne. The room was filled with men, successful, confident, charming men, all dressed impeccably, some catching my gaze with subtle, knowing smiles. I told myself it was just for networking at first, but the night had a magnetic pull I hadn't anticipated. Every conversation felt layered with flirtation. Every look seemed to linger just a second too long. I could feel my heartbeat quicken, a mix of curiosity and guilt swirling inside me. I had never done anything like this before, and yet, as I moved further into the room, I felt a sense of freedom that both scared and exhilarated me. That I glanced at my phone, seeing the time tick past. My husband would be home soon, completely unaware of where I truly was. And in that instant, I realized I'd stepped into a world I had only ever imagined, and there was no turning back just yet. The room seemed to pull me in deeper with every step. Laughter and soft music intertwined, creating a rhythm that made my nerves tingle. A man approached me, confident but polite, offering a drink with a charming smile. I hesitated for a moment, glancing around to make sure no one I knew was watching, and then accepted. The taste of the cocktail was sharp, slightly sweet, and oddly intoxicating. Not just the alcohol, but the thrill of being somewhere I wasn't supposed to be. Conversations flowed easily. I found myself laughing more than I had in weeks. Men leaned in slightly when they spoke, their attention focused entirely on me. I couldn't deny it made me feel alive. There was a dangerous excitement in the air, a sense that anything could happen, and for some reason, that possibility thrilled me. I kept my phone tucked away, ignoring the messages I knew were probably from him, trusting, or maybe hoping, that he still believed I was with friends. Part of me felt guilty, but another part wanted to see how far the night could go. Then I noticed a group gathered near a dimly lit corner, talking animatedly. One of them gestured for me to join, and something inside me whispered yes. I moved closer, my pulse quickening, realizing I was stepping further into a world that was completely foreign to me, yet oddly irresistible. I couldn't tell if I was chasing curiosity or running from routine. Either way, the night had only just begun. The group welcomed me with easy smiles, and I felt an unexpected warmth in their attention. They weren't just flirtatious, they were genuinely interesting, asking questions that made me think, laugh, and even reveal little things about myself I rarely shared. For a moment, I almost forgot about my husband, about the lie I had told to get here. One of the men leaned closer, his voice low and smooth as he asked about my life, my dreams, the things I'd never mentioned at home. I could feel a mix of fear and thrill in his gaze, and I realized just how much I'd been craving attention, validation, even just conversation that wasn't routine or predictable. That a few hours passed in what felt like minutes. Drinks were poured, music shifted to a softer, more intimate tone, and the room seemed to shrink around us, making every glance and laugh feel heavier, more charged. I could feel my heart racing, not entirely from the alcohol. Every subtle touch on my arm, every lingering look made me question how I'd let myself get here. And then there was a quiet moment when I caught my reflection in a mirrored wall. I barely recognized myself. The woman staring back was bold, adventurous, and dangerous in ways I had never allowed to surface. A pang of guilt hit me, but it was quickly drowned out by the magnetic pull of the night. I realized I was no longer just observing the party. I was part of it, and it was changing me in ways I wasn't ready to admit. As the night deepened, the atmosphere became even more intoxicating. The conversations grew flirtier, the laughter louder, and the subtle touches more daring. I caught myself leaning into the attention, letting the thrill wash over me. even as a small, nagging voice inside whispered about my husband, and the lie I had told. Point one man in particular stood out. He was confident, charming, and seemed genuinely interested in me. Not just the surface level chatter, but my thoughts, my fears, the parts of myself I rarely let anyone see. His presence made my pulse quicken, and I realized I was drawn to the danger of it all. Every glance, every word felt like a temptation I wasn't prepared to resist. The music shifted again, slower, more seductive. Couples were dancing around me, and I could feel the tension in the room heighten with every movement. I wondered if my husband knew where I really was, if he had any idea that this night was nothing like what I'd told him. My phone vibrated once in my bag. I ignored it. I couldn't bring myself to face reality just yet that a part of me felt exhilarated, alive in a way I hadn't felt for years, while another part felt guilty, trapped between desire and loyalty. The night had begun as a simple escape, but now it had become a crossroads, where every choice carried weight, and I wasn't sure I could turn back without shattering something inside me. To be why now. The party had reached its peak. The room was alive with laughter, soft music, and the hum of conversations that felt electric with possibility. I found myself moving through the crowd, smiling and talking, feeling a strange mix of liberation and guilt. Every compliment, every lingering glance made me feel noticed in a way I hadn't experienced in years, and I couldn't deny how addictive it was. The man who had been paying special attention to me leaned closer again, his voice a quiet murmur over the music. He asked about my life in a way that felt intimate, probing gently but with undeniable curiosity. I shared more than I normally would, feeling a connection that was both thrilling and terrifying. Each word seemed to pull me further into this night, into a world I wasn't supposed to inhabit. At T1 point, I stepped onto the balcony for some air, the city lights glittering below like 1,000 tiny invitations. I felt exposed, guilty, exhilarated all at once. My phone buzzed again. This time, I considered answering it, imagining my husband's voice and the trust he had placed in me. But the pull of the party, the temptation of anonymity and freedom, held me there. A part of me whispered to leave, to return to safety, to the life I knew. But another part resisted, curious about just how far this night could go, about the uncharted side of myself that was waking up with each passing moment. And in that hesitation, I realized that nothing would feel the same after tonight. As the night wore on, the energy in the room shifted. Conversations became more intense, the laughter more intoxicating, and the air thick with unspoken possibilities. I noticed the way the men's attention lingered, the way they leaned in slightly when speaking, their eyes never leaving mine. It made me aware of every movement I made, every gesture, and I realized just how alive I felt in this charged atmosphere. The man who had been closest to me offered to show me a quieter part of the venue. I hesitated, knowing that each step I took further from the crowd meant moving deeper into unknown territory. But curiosity and thrill outweighed caution, and I followed. The small lounge we entered was dimly lit, intimate and strangely private, a stark contrast to the lively main hall. We talked there for what felt like hours, sharing thoughts, stories, and laughter that never reached the surface earlier. I could feel the magnetic pull of his presence, an undeniable allure that both excited and frightened me. My phone buzzed once more in my bag, but I ignored it. Tonight was no longer about my usual life. It was about something different, something forbidden. A sense of tension settled over me, though, not from fear of the men, but from the knowledge of where I truly belonged, the reality waiting for me outside these walls. The thrill of the night clashed with my conscience, and I realized that the choices I made now could change everything. I was standing on the edge of a decision that might not have a simple way back. The night was starting to feel like a dream, one I knew I might regret waking from. The music was softer now, the crowd thinning, yet the intensity of the evening hadn't diminished. Every glance, every word, every brush of a hand felt magnified, making my heart race and my mind whirl with conflicting emotions. That he looked at me with a mix of admiration and curiosity, and I realized how easy it was to lose myself in this attention. Part of me wanted to stay in this world a little longer to feel seen, desired, and alive. But another part of me, the part that belonged to my husband, my home, and my life, began to ache with guilt. The thought of him, completely unaware of where I truly was, pressed on my conscience with a weight I could no longer ignore. I stepped away for a moment, retreating to the balcony again, breathing in the night air. The city lights sparkled below, indifferent to the storm raging inside me. I wondered how easily a single decision could unravel everything. How thrilling temptation could be so destructive. My phone vibrated one last time. I ignored it again, feeling the thrill and the fear intertwined that I knew that whatever happened in the next few hours would leave a mark on me, one I couldn't erase. The pull of excitement battled with the tug of responsibility, and I was trapped between two worlds, the life I had built and the temptation that had drawn me out into the night. I didn't know which would win, but I knew the choice was mine alone. As dawn approached, the party began to wind down, leaving a quiet stillness in its wake. The music had faded, the crowd thinned, but the weight of the night lingered heavily on my shoulders. I found myself alone for a moment, reflecting on everything that had happened, the laughter, the attention, the thrill, and the dangerous exhilaration that had pulled me so far from the life I knew. That I realized then that the choices I had made tonight were mine alone to carry. The excitement had been intoxicating, but it had come at the cost of trust, of the safe world my husband believed I inhabited. A pang of guilt hit me harder than anything else. I knew that returning home would be complicated, the lie I had told now a burden that could not easily be lifted. As I stepped out into the early morning air, the city still glowing softly around me, I felt a strange mix of liberation and regret. I had tasted something forbidden, something thrilling, but I also understood its consequences. Tonight had changed me, awakened sides of myself I hadn't acknowledged, and left me questioning what I truly wanted for my life. Walking back to the car, I tried to steady my racing thoughts. The night had ended, but its impact would linger. I knew one thing for certain. Nothing would ever feel the same again. The choices I had made, the temptation I had succumbed to, and the freedom I had experienced, these were all mine to carry, and I would have to face the reality of them soon enough.